Congratulations, you're another lucky no prize winner. You'll find it enclosed.
Hello again, and welcome to an immense episode of No Prize Podcast. And I am your host, the Professor, Bud Young. And with me, as always, is the Professor. That's me. Johnny, I'm always with myself. Johnny the Machine Hughes from across the pond. Hi, Johnny. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm always here, whatever it takes.
And I'm tongue-tied today because our episode today is all about Avengers Endgame.
Ba, 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 ba.
And we are going to preface this podcast by saying we are going to spoil it. We're going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about plot points. We're going to talk about what we loved, what we didn't like, what we expect going forward. So if you don't want to be spoiled, probably, maybe around the 10-minute mark, we start like revealing plot points. But this is not a safe podcast for you if you have not seen the movie yet.
Just play pause.
Yeah.
Leave the website, whichever one you're using. You should be using Podcoin. Just saying. Go and book your tickets. We'll be here in like 3.5 hours once you've been to the Plex and seen the show. Then you can come back and listen to what we thought. There you go. That's what you should do.
There you go. All right. So yeah, it's been out for about 48 hours now. Can I tell you the best impression that I had before I saw the movie was I was on Facebook and I was trying to spoilers like you would not believe, right? Because they had just started trickling out, and it was Thursday, so it was like showings that night because I went to a Thursday night showing, and I started seeing pictures on Facebook from the Avengers premiere because I follow and I'm friends with a lot of Avengers creators, right? And I started seeing Jim Starlin started posting pictures from the red carpet and from the theater, and then he started posting pictures of Steve Englehart, who we've had on the podcast, and Ron Lim, and I'm just like, oh, like I know all these people, and it was that was like the beginning of the hype train for me because I've been trying to stay away from all the trailers, and I wanted to go in there without any kind of expectations of what I was going to see. Okay. But to start seeing all these people that fringe relationships with, and how much they enjoyed the premiere, and of course nobody was spoiling anything. I thought it was amazing, and it just ramped up my excitement for the movie like 100,000,000%. And I went into the movie with with really, really high hopes, especially when the first initial reviews started coming back, and it's kind of overwhelmingly positive, right?
Right. Well, you say that, but I was on like a super crackdown. I have not read a review about the movie because I want to keep my thoughts to my thoughts. I managed to avoid all the spoilers. Check me out.
Wow.
For me, I was very similar to you. Thursday night show, 6 p.m. UK time. So I had to go all day through work with people saying, "Oh, have you seen such and such a spoiler?" No, I don't want to know. I managed to avoid all them, practically getting myself fired at the time. And then once I'd seen it, the gauntlet was on the other hand, my friend.
Oh, yes.
I was like, do you want to know what happens? Do you want me to tell you?
So are you like me, and do you have that one friend that is like, call me as soon as you get out of the movie and spoil everything?
No, because I wouldn't do that to anyone. I think the hype for the movie and some worries. I've got to be honest. I had a couple of worries going in about the movie, but I think the hype for it, and it's not just one movie though, is it? It's because it's the Marvel universe, and it's been going for 10, 12 years, and people have invested so much time in this. It's not like just a movie sort of thing. And I think to myself, well, especially after seeing the movie, very much the same way that Undiscovered Country has, there is a certain feeling that you get from this movie, and I think that if you respect your friends, you don't spoil it for that reason, because it's the emotional impact that the movie has. Not the action set pieces are fine, and the talky bits are fine, and whatever, but it's the emotional wallop that the film provides that I think that you don't want spoiled.
Have you ever anticipated a movie more than you anticipated Endgame? I mean, post watching it, really?
Yeah. I was mega hyped about The Dark Knight Rises, and after I went to because it released at the same time in the States and UK. So when it released over, I think it was something like midnight EST or whatever. That's 5 a.m. my time. So my wife and I went to the cinema,
Wow.
and at 5:30 in the morning, we're drinking cappuccinos to stay awake. 5 o'clock in the morning, people are eating big buckets of popcorn.
My God! And then
freaks.
and then Bane started talking, and you felt like we got ripped off.
Well, actually, I cried after the end of the movie. I sat in the car and I cried because for two things really. One, the trilogy was over, and that's it. It is over. There's nothing you can do about it. They can do another Batman movie, but that set of movies is gone. And the second reason was because it was so shit. And pardon my French, but The Dark Knight Rises, and I've said this loads of times to anyone who's listening, it is my least favorite Batman movie. I prefer Batman and Robin over The Dark Knight Rises.
So that was an example of maybe anticipating something so highly that did not live up to the hype.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say again, when I went to see Endgame, I said to my wife exactly the same thing that I went to see Infinity War. I said, I want this movie to blow my socks off. I want to come out of this movie like it's been the best movie of my life.
Oh, so you know what? I don't want you to tell me if that was how you felt yet.
Not yet.
Save it.
I will. I'm good.
Okay. Good. All right. So
just one more aside. For the guys that sat in somebody else's seats, 3 teenage girls were there. They asked these guys to move, this guy and his wife, because they were in their seats and they wouldn't move. So they had to go get the usher to come and move the couple, which are a couple of adults, by the way, so the 3 girls could sit together. Shame on you for not moving when they showed you that they've got the tickets. Why'd you have to do that to kids? You know, they've paid the price, same as you have, to go and see the movie. So you're the mature ones. You're supposed to be able to get up and move, for Christ's sakes, dickheads. Sorry.
So that's something that they just recently started doing over here, Johnny, and so I went to the theater and had assigned seats too, and they've never done that before recently. As usually when you buy your ticket, it's kind of first come first serve wherever you want to sit.
Yeah.
And
old school, that's what I used to prefer, but now it means that you don't have to queue. So I picked up my tickets on the Wednesday because I'd pre-booked them online. So I picked. Well, actually, I didn't. My wife did. The day that they were live, she was there booking them, so that's fine. So I went to get them on the Wednesday, so I didn't have to queue to pick up the tickets. And then because they were assigned seating, you could rock up a minute before the movie starts, missing out all the trailers and all the usual kerfuffle adverts that you've got to go through, and know that your seat's there. So, it kind of works from that point of view.
Yeah, it does. I can't say that I'm a fan of it because I always like to kind of get in there and sit like right in the direct middle of the theater, and those are usually the first seats that go.
Well,
so
yeah. you can go for a meal now before you, and you can like take your time to enjoy it instead of wolfing down that pizza and giving yourself heartburn through half the movie.
Well, so the valid argument. Valid argument. So did you have to do some refreshment management when you were in the theater? Because that was the big thing, right? Everybody was like, prepare yourselves.
I went to the lavatory before the trailer started. I had
smart move.
I don't know what can I say. I had a 500 milliliter bottle of, I think it's Dr. Pepper Zero, and that was the only drink I had through the entire movie, and I just kept sipping at it rather than gulping it.
So for those of us in the States, 500 milliliters is how much exactly? Is that like a?
Don't you do liters? Oh, there's pints in it.
Well, we do. Yeah. So like sodas, like would be like a liter or like a 30 ounces, really.
All right. Okay. So, do you get your sodas in like the small plastic bottles that are bigger than the Budweiser can? You know the small Budweiser can?
Yeah, plastic bottles. Yeah.
So you know the Budweiser can, the small one.
Yeah.
That's 330 milliliters.
Okay, so kind of was like
another third on that.
Like a tall boy, like a little. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that wasn't that was not a lot of refreshment, Johnny, for a 3-hour movie.
No, I was primed. I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit and watch the movie. And that's all it was in. And once I was in the zone, I was fine. So, and my wife didn't go once either. My wife, exactly the same thing. We bought some popcorn, I think. But again, we didn't eat all of it because it's salty, and you think, oh, obviously I put too much thought into this. If you have too much salty popcorn, you want to drink. If you want to drink, you have more fluids. If you have more fluids, you've got to go to the toilet. And no matter what they say, there's never a good place in this movie to go to take a leak.
You know, there really isn't. And that was one of the kind of the spoilery things I was seeing online was like, when do you get up to go to the bathroom in a 3-hour movie? And I was just like, you don't. It's only 3 hours. I mean, most normal movies are 2.5 hours. So I mean, if you can't hold it that extra half hour, come on.
Yeah, just common sense, man.
And especially if you've made it through the 2-hour mark of Avengers Endgame, you're not getting up to go to the bathroom in the last hour. I'm sorry, you're just not.
Nowhere.
So, who went? It was just you and Mrs. Hughes.
Yeah, me and Mrs. H went date night. We went straight from work, so I was shirt and tie, no comic apparel on me, unfortunately. So because we finished work about 5 o'clock, tickets were at 6. I managed to get and grab a McDonald's before I went in. My wife was eating the sandwiches in the car park, so because she got there a little bit later than me. So there you go. It's really funny because everybody in McDonald's at between 5:15 and 20 to 6 all were in the movie. It was like
really?
It was like seeing all friends come in. I was like, oh look, there's that guy with his kid, and no, there's such and such. And
everybody, yeah. So my girlfriend got out of work, and I got out of work at the same time, and so I ended up going to my ex's house to pick up the kids, and then rocketed back home to pick up my girlfriend, and we went to the movies. So there's 4 of us, and my kids have grown up on the cinematic universe. My daughter's 12, so she was only 1 when Iron Man came out, and Logan, my son, is 17, so he was 6, 5 or 6, and he's grown up with all these superheroes through me. And I've said many times on the podcast that my kids don't read comics, but they know all the superheroes through the movies.
Yeah.
And so this was very much an experience, an event that there's just no way when we go into the movies that this movie was going to live up to the hype that I had put up on it, especially with the kids and everything. And we haven't missed a Marvel movie in forever, right? So every time the movie comes out, they can't see it until I take them. That's the rule. So
as you get older, that's going to be harder to enforce. Logan, you'll be driving soon. You'll be like, "Screw you, Dad. Screw you. I'm going to the cinema."
Yeah, no, it's true, and we be able to see all these movies for the first time all together, and so that made this one kind of extra special, right? So maybe after this one, all bets are off. So maybe they can go see the movies on their own now, but so maybe this was an end of more than one thing. So, all right. So initial thoughts. So let's talk about now. What is it? We're about 10 minutes in, right? So
are we going spoilers?
Well, let's start talking about overall.
All right.
Elements of the movie. We don't have to spoil anything yet,
okay.
But right. So go ahead. What were your initial thoughts of? I don't know, the opening scene, because I like the when it opened, I liked that they didn't really have to show you what had happened before, right? And that was one of my biggest problems was Jeremy Renner not showing up in Infinity War.
Yeah.
And to have the movie open with him playing with his kids, and then the obvious tragedy of what happened at the end of Infinity War, and seeing his everybody disappear and he's alone. To me, that was probably a more affecting moment to me than the whole end of Infinity War when everybody was just crumbling to dust. As a parent, to watch, to have him turn around and now his wife's gone and then all of his kids are gone.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice way to remind everybody what had gone on. I don't think we've had that much time with Hawkeye's family to actually get to really care about them.
Well, right.
So as they as you've alluded to, as they meet the Infinity War end, I'm kind of thinking it's kind of just the thing that has to happen to get Hawkeye from where he is under house arrest to where he needs to be down the line. I looked at it, unfortunately, that cynically. And I also, I'll explain a little bit more about that later on.
Sure.
As well. I'm not going to go into it right now. But I thought it was a nice way to try to bring everybody back to focus as to what had happened.
Right.
Unless you went and watched the double bill where you watched Infinity War before, and then you went to see Endgame straight after, which some of the cinemas around here were doing. So that's fine.
Oh, really? Yeah, we had some theaters around here that were doing 2 days worth of Marvel movies. They were showing every single one, and then ending it with the premiere of Endgame, and you were able to see it 6 hours before everybody else. So I don't know at the end of the day if that might have been worth it, if you could have taken a couple of days off of work.
I don't know. There's some stinkers in there.
The bathroom break. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, whoa, man, I can't believe I've got to go and sit through Guardians 2 again. Ooh.
Yeah. Take a nap. It has 2 days in the theater. There have to be a couple of stinkers, right? You don't want to. Wake me up when Iron Man 3 is over. So this I don't really know where to start as far as talking actually about the movie.
Right. So let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's just jump in.
This is the moment. If you don't want to know anything about the film, and you want to go and check it out before you listen to the rest of the pod, this is the bit where you pause. This is the bit where you go and book your tickets, and we'll see you in a couple of hours, 3 hours or so, when you get your ass back. All right?
All right.
That's it. That's your warning.
See you in a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So
next.
All right. So what did you think about the time travel element that they used in the movie?
Well, hold on. There's bits before that bit.
Oh, we're gonna go through the whole thing.
Well,
All right. So hey, they time travel, but we'll get there.
yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. So the 5 year.
Before the
Right.
5-year leap.
Right. Are we talking? Right. So.
So Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel turns up as you'd expect, and I didn't have a problem with that. In fact, I didn't have a problem with that whole segment of the movie at all. I understand how it played out. I understand who did what and all that sort of stuff. I understand Tony's reaction to Steve. Totally get that. My first problem with the movie happens with the time jump. There you go.
So
how's that for a starting point?
So I could tell you my initial reaction where the remaining Avengers once Captain Marvel and Nebula and Tony show up.
And Rocket.
No, Rocket was there already.
Oh, of
right?
course
He was left over.
Yeah, he was left over.
That to me, when they decide to go, let's go get Thanos, right? So that was the epitome of where Tony was like, "That's what we do, avenge," right? And then that's exactly what they do. And I, for one, I was kind of shocked. Like 10 minutes in, and I'm like, oh, wait, what did they? Okay, so Thanos is dead. But to me, that was I guess when I went in there, I kind of thought that they were going to have that quick fix, right? That quick fix of bringing everybody back, and that like not a lot of time would have passed between how much actually did pass, right? Like where people actually moved on. I didn't know if they were going to show that moving on, or if they were just going to continue the action until they brought everybody back.
I think they had to show that moving on bit.
Well, upon reflection, it was absolutely the correct move. But go ahead.
After 5 years, I might be a cynic. I'm really sorry about this, right? But it pans to like Met Stadium and places like that, and it's empty, and places are derelict and stuff. It's like half the population disappeared. Now, it's as it's alluded to in Hawkeye. Hawkeye lost 1, 2, 3, 4 family members. All right, so it's not like half of a unit goes disappeared; it's half of the population. So you've got to turn around and think that even with half the population gone, there'd still be enough people to play baseball. Wouldn't
More people are enough to maintain the roads or pick up the trash or fix.
Because there'd be less trash. That was the point of Thanos in the first place, at least in the movie version, is that he's saying that the resources of the universe are infinite. They're finite, and as the species become bigger and bigger and bigger, they're eating away at the universe. So he culled the universe by half to make it a better place for everybody. Now, you can't tell me that every of that half a population that went, that it would have over 5 years, it would have such a devastating impact that when you go on a date, you'd still cry. It's 5 years. It's like there'd still be baseball, there'd still be NFL, there'd still be people going to work.
In an initial when I think the first real look we got at how derelict the United States looked was when Scott got spit out of the quantum realm, right? Yeah. And you start seeing like gigantic piles of trash, or he's walking down the street, and it looked like The Walking Dead. And I'm
but it shouldn't be, because
right.
Half the people equals half the mess.
True.
So you can't tell me that of the half the population that lost, all the sanitation workers disappeared. It's just I know they had to make the point. I know they had to hammer it home for it to have that resonance. I get that. I understand that. But from a believability aspect, which is strange to be saying this considering we're talking about bloody gods of thunder and mechanical men and aliens and all that, but from a believability process, it just didn't work. It felt disjointed at that stage.
Yeah. Well, you'd think it 5 years after the fact they would have at least towed all the cars out of Yankee Stadium, right?
True.
And And plus, they still had some superheroes around, so I imagine the cleanup effort would have actually probably,
Yeah,
not taken as long as anybody thought, probably.
yeah. I mean, in essence,
But
they had the original Avengers still.
yeah, and as Captain America said, the whale population had went up, so less ships. So they were conscious of that. They knew that less people meant that the water was cleaner, the air was cleaner.
Yeah, but then society would have just adapted around that. But anyway, that's me being too sensible. But there you go.
Well, if that's the worst nitpick you have in this movie.
Oh well, no, it gets worse than that.
All right, so the 5 year later leap, and then that's when the plot kind of kicks into high gear, right, with the return of Scott Lang, and that's where he finds his way to the Avengers, where he realizes that the quantum realm, the time travels differently when you're there. And hey, maybe we can harness that and use that to go back in time and get the stones before they ever happened. Before Thanos ever found them. And
here's my next issue. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready to go.
I don't understand how they can use film references as a means to understanding how time travel works.
Well, I think
they didn't even use Doctor Who is the best time traveler of all. Thank you, but it was all like, oh well, not in Back to the Future. You can't do this. You can't do that in Quantum Leap. And you can't do. That's right, because they're fiction. It's not real. They're not documentaries.
Right.
That was oh, Back to the Future sucks. Back to the Future told us lies. Back to the Future is a fictitious film for.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be? It was a little meta, though. I mean, because that was where a film saying a film can't do that.
I know, but come on. It's like
yeah.
I think it was it was Roddy, wasn't it? That was spouting about the films. I'm like, you cannot tell me that you're basing time travel on everything that you've seen in a movie.
Well, they were basing on why it wouldn't work. They showed you how, but so I think what they meant by that scene was that no one really knew how it worked because it was all theory.
I think they're trying to get, in fairness, upon reflection, it's another scene that had to be in there because how we have been programmed to think is that if you take one element out of the past, then that impacts that person's future. Well, that's only if time splits. If time is like a piece of string and it's no matter what you do, those events are going to happen, then there's two different types of time travel story in there, isn't there? There's two different theories, I should say, in that if you take out the time stone, or if you take out Thanos or whatever it is, then it's not necessarily going to bring everybody back because that it's happening now, not and all that sort of stuff. And you kind of think, well, it's kind of right because we do think of time travel as just go back, fix that one bit, come back, everything's hunky dory. If time's constant, then it doesn't always work like that. But it had to be in there, but it just made me laugh.
So you're right. You're right about that scene having to be in there. If anything, it's to tell us this is how it's going to work in this movie.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It educates us as to how time travel is going to work in this movie. It's going to educate us that when something happens later in the movie, then it still allows for the first film to have happened. Because if what happens at the end of this one on the other time travel wheel, if it happens,
right,
then Infinity War doesn't happen and everything else becomes a paradox. So you've got to think that we've got to educate people.
So Yeah, so and I'm sure we're going to talk about this more towards the end because I kind of want to. I don't know if I want to do this linearly or
Oh no, just go for it. Yeah,
jump
just
through
jump.
time.
Just jump it. Just go for it.
So with the time travel aspect. So if we're gonna go there.
Yeah.
So well, what did you think about Smart Hulk before we go any further?
I didn't like Smart Hulk at all in any shape, way, or form. I thought it was daft. I didn't understand what having Smart Hulk brought to the equation, other than the fact that down the line it has an impact because he decides about something. Even that, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand why. My wife, on the other hand, thought Smart Hulk was the best. She thought he was really cool. In fact, Smart Hulk is my wife's favorite character in this movie. There you go.
Oh, well, I'm sure she's not alone because I enjoyed seeing Smart Hulk basically for the fact that they did Smart Hulk in the comic book, and it's another element of the Hulk that no one's seen before. No one's seen Hulk be smart, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool, and I thought it was with so much going on, you don't want Tony being the only big brain, right? Or Tony and Scott. So you needed to have someone that knew what they were doing, kind of handling and pulling the switches, right?
Yeah.
So, but the time travel element, and they do spend quite a bit of time actually trying to figure out how to do it, right? Because that's how they bring Tony back in, because Tony's the one that figures it out, and then that leads into the whole second third of the movie, right? Where they're going back and they're visiting all of the 20 movies that have come before us.
Yeah.
And then so the scene with Smart Hulk, and that's why I brought him up, when he went back to get the time gem from Doctor Strange and realized it was the ancient one there, and they had that conversation about how time works in Marvel, and that you have to take the stones and return them back to where you got them, and then you create, the stream is unbroken, right? Instead of splitting off into whatever. So that's actually served to be a precursor really to the end of the movie. With actually, what is it? What do you want to call it? Like the second epilogue, maybe, or the epilogue to the movie, where Captain America is assigned to return the gems back to where they got them, along with the multitude of other like Mjolnir. We're gonna go back to Asgard and put Mjolnir back where Thor got it.
Yeah.
And then of course the final scene where Cap does not come back, and then when you see him, 2 seconds later sitting on the park bench, and he has that, rather touching moment with Sam, where he hands over the shield and says, you're Captain America now, and we realize that the movie ends exactly the way Johnny had predicted that it would.
Yay, baby! Yes.
You heard it here first. I saw that moment and I just looked at my girlfriend and I was like, "Oh, Johnny is not going to be able. I'm not going to be able to live with him."
I'm not gonna brag about it. I'm just saying,
Hey, you know what? You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say that the Russo brothers listen to No Prize podcast, and they said they were listening, and they didn't have an ending for the movie, and they listened to Johnny, and they were like, "Oh my God, we got it! We have it! I have it!"
I also had another thing. I had another element picked as well. To be fair, which I didn't think I said that on the pod, but I said to my wife about 10 days ago. So I was quite pleased when that happened as well.
Oh, you're gonna not tell me yet?
Oh yeah, it was the shield. I said the shield's got to get broken.
Oh yeah, because
that's a pure Captain America moment when the shield gets broken. And I said that's got to happen.
Yeah.
And when it does, that's the trigger. That's the Thor moment in when in Thor 1, when he gives up his life to save the town.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Thor being so totally selfless. Because if you remember in Thor, he doesn't actually call for the hammer then. The hammer decides that Thor's worthy and flies to him anyway.
Right.
So when you see Cap with the broken shield, strap it on his arm again. That's him being, this is it. I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to die. I'm just going to, I've got to do this. That's the thing that starts, to me, one of the best cinema moments. There you go. We talk about negatives, but positives. That bit, straps on the shield, and what happens next just made me smile so much.
There's so many tangents because I want to talk about that moment too.
Okay.
But to get back to the time,
Okay.
so that moment where he comes back and now he has a shield that was broken. He got that from somewhere, right?
Right, yeah. He's got it from somewhere. Don't know where.
And he never came back, which means he stayed with Peggy, which also further screwed up the timeline. So everybody here, like everybody that was leaving, I'm sure everybody that that's not me and Johnny probably hasn't even thought about this since they left the theater. But time's probably more broken now than before they sent Steve back to return the gems.
I thought about this because Steve went back in time, had his dance with Peggy, got married because old Steve's got a wedding ring on.
Yep.
So he got married. There's nothing to say that when you see Peggy in Winter Soldier, and she's got dementia. There's nothing to say. She can't discern which Steve it is, whether it's that the Steve she sees, which is the one that's been frozen in ice, isn't her Steve. She's got dementia. She's got Alzheimer's. She can't piece the two together. So she's talking two different conversations, and now we know that there are two different Steves, so that adds to her confusion. And then she dies, and young Steve is the pallbearer. Yeah, and old Steve is just off doing his own thing because he's got the memory of having done that because he's gone from the future, so he knows he can't take part in that.
Okay, so what was he? Was he hiding in the closet?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because no matter which Steve it is, whether it's old Steve or young Steve, the emotions that he feels for Peggy are the constant there, right?
Do you think they had a family?
Well, I don't know, but here's the thing: when Steve goes back, you've got to think he's already said goodbye to Peggy at that stage. So old Steve in the past doesn't need to go to the funeral. He's already done it as his younger self, who actually did do it in the movies. See, this is why time travel gives you a headache.
Right, of course.
Yeah. And then as long as the two don't, well, it doesn't matter if you bump into each other, but the two don't bump into each other, older Steve then gives up, just continues being whatever, living his life, getting old and yada yada, and young Steve is off being the Avengers that we know so well from thingy. And old Steve can die thinking, well, I know everything's going to happen because I was there, so everything's good.
So where does he get the shield?
I don't know. You'll find out in the TV show that I can't watch. Disney Plus.
Oh Jesus! So I mean, so that kind of feels like that's going to open up a can of worms for the future, right?
Yeah.
And I really think that the next big bad might be Kang.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we'll see. Because I mean, at one point, wasn't there was a Guardians of the Galaxy comic with was it Vance? And
Vance Astro, yeah.
He had the shield. That was his. So in the comic books, the shield survived, and I know the shield got broken more times than enough. Dr. Octopus broke it once, cracked it at least with his arms, and then it's been obviously destroyed many times because he had that energy shield for a little bit. Well, and then there was USA Agent with a shield as well as Captain America at the time. So creating a shield isn't as unique as you'd think it is, considering it's a vibranium, adamantium, and a third unknown alloy.
Well,
At least in the
that
comic
was
book.
that was the history of Cap's shield. Can I probably won't get into it too much, but yeah. So the shield Cap's using in the comics now is not the original shield.
No.
The original shield was broken
Yes.
years ago. Yeah, because there was because the first shield was not adamantium. It was a stronger
Yeah.
stronger than the adamantium.
It was a vibranium, adamantium, and an unknown
No,
third alloy.
that's the current shield. The current shield is the adamantium vibranium mix. U.S. Agent shield was pure vibranium,
Okay.
and yeah, the kind of electric shield that he had was Tony Stark made that. Yeah, I don't know. But the original shield was broken, I believe, in Avengers Disassembled from back with Bendis broke it. Back. I think Scarlet Witch broke it or something like that.
Ah.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, right? Because they retconned it and he's got a shield now, so it's cool.
All good.
So yeah, so the whole time travel element is kind of like a can of worms because we kind of have to expect that the normal fan, because you need to explain time travel to how it's going to work.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't really work the way they explain it.
No, I didn't mind some of the time travel bits. It did get a little bit Back to the Future too in places. Especially the travel back to the first Avengers movie. I thought that was just a little bit too. I suppose there had to be comedy element in there. The best part of that was the Hail Hydra.
That was yeah. That was
and the nod back to the very best fight scene in Winter Soldier in the lift or the elevator, as you guys say.
yes.
So yeah, I could have done without it, especially as when they went into space to get the rings, to get the gems. They had to go to two different places and then use the ship, and it's like, and then of course Nebula got a little bit freaky going on, and you're like, because you have to expect something down the line. But of course, this is where the Hawkeye bit comes in place, because without that Hawkeye bit at the start, you could accuse Marvel of fridging. We talked about fridging last time. The Black Widow.
Right.
She's just there to die.
She's there to sacrifice herself.
Yeah.
To further the plot.
Yeah, that's fridging. That's fridging exactly. But it's only fridging if you don't do the Hawkeye bit. The Hawkeye bit, now her motives become more noble because as an audience, you want to see Hawkeye reunited with his family. And that doesn't work if you don't see them get dusted.
Right.
So, as much as I'm absolutely annoyed that they got rid of the widow, I understand from a storytelling purpose why that had happened.
Right. So it stood like they had to have Hawkeye and Black Widow go back together, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because it wouldn't have worked with any other character. You can't really have Hawkeye pair up with anybody else.
Yeah.
So that made a lot of sense to me. When we start talking about story and everything, and that's where I feel like they hit so many of the notes that they were supposed to hit, and that there was not a lot of stuff that they didn't do or they didn't do right. But I mean that might be my overall view, but we haven't really talked about some of the biggest parts of the movie. What did you think about Tony's arc in this movie?
I was fine with it. I thought it was a good arc. I thought lots of things were done well. I can finally say that I've got a better body than Thor, which is always good.
Yeah, well, that's.
But again, it makes sense. The element of that does make sense because he's You know, he's had loss upon loss upon loss upon loss upon. You know, it kind of takes its toll. So I totally understand. Totally understand that part. Tony's arc, I thought was solid. I'm not a big fan of Ant-Man. I just think the tone's a little bit off with it, but I guess that you've got to have different voices, I suppose, like the humor elements and stuff. But
well, here's where I feel like maybe I don't agree with you on that, because I feel and yes, maybe I didn't really like Scott Lang, and I didn't really like the Ant-Man and Ant-Man and Wasp. I kind of thought those were two of the weaker installments in 21 movies. But I think in this movie, I think Scott really came into his own and really kind of became a hero, which I don't think before he was really all that heroic, right? And this whole movie, the whole plot was, it was kind of like a heist movie, right? Like steal the gems, right? And that's his whole motivation, ex-thief. But to have him kind of like, and he acted heroically in this movie throughout, especially in the third portion of the movie where, he saved Rocket and Hulk and War Machine and then of course, the big, the Giant Man, even though they did it already before in Civil War, but it was still a moment, it was still one of those really cool things.
Yeah, punching the Chitauri ship, brilliant.
Yeah. So to me, I think that this, like, Scott actually became a hero in this movie. Like his journey was up until this point, he was kind of pretending.
I get that, and I kind of agree with you. I'm not a big fan of the character, so.
Yeah, I think so. As far as Tony's arc, and of course, let's not miss words. Tony has been the most important character in Marvel Studios since they launched Iron Man 11 years ago, right?
Okay.
And
you think?
Who else would? Do you think? Do you think Cap?
Who else? What? Who's more important than Iron
Man? Who's more important than Iron Man?
Captain America. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think his movies are consistently better. I think Iron Man 1 is a really fun movie. It's really good. But you yourself, Iron Man 3 is not that great. Iron Man 2,
horrible.
Iron Man 2 only has a couple of moments in it. To be fair, Tony's best moments were in Iron Man 1 and Civil War. Civil War being a Captain America movie. Who's the constant?
Well, maybe constant for quality, but as far as maybe importance to the overall mythos of Marvel's cinematic universe, I think Iron Man is probably more. Well, he's been Disney's moneymaker, right? Robert Downey Jr. And I think initially his signing, his casting as Tony, kind of lit the fire of this movie. It was his portrayal of Tony Stark made you think that, wow, this franchise could be something,
Oh no, I get where you're coming from. I get that he made the first sort of like impression, like, wow, this could really work. Totally agree with that. It's such a shame then that if after making such a great impression that the next two movies out of the gate faltered. It didn't say. You talk about Scott Lang not being heroic.
That's true.
So Tony Stark, when Iron Man, it's about saving his own skin. Iron Man 2, it's about he's dying because the arc reactor's poisoning him, so he has to save his own skin again. And Iron Man 3, it's somebody having a go at him because he was a dick when he was younger. None of those sound like, oh my god, he's a hero. So if you say he's the centerpiece, I get he's probably the most iconic and easily watchable one because you don't have to worry about what happened in the war, and you don't have to worry about Winter Soldier being a spy movie, not a superhero movie, and you don't have to worry about Civil War because Civil War looks like an Avengers movie, not a Captain America movie. But Captain America is a hero in every single one of those. Yeah.
I agree with you there. Captain America is the hero. He's the, everybody wants to be Captain America.
Even, and this is the thing, when they're together, Tony Stark but either butts heads with Cap, but eventually agrees with him. He looks to Cap. Even in Avengers, the first movie, when they come to fight the chariot at the end scene, he's like, Cap, call it. So he's trusting Cap to do this, and this. And that's why he's so angry at the beginning of this, is because Stark trusted Cap to do the right thing, and to Stark, Cap didn't. Even though Stark could have called him, and he was going to call him in Infinity War.
Right.
So, it's... You see that Stark needs Captain America. You don't necessarily feel that Rogers needs Iron Man. There you go.
All right. Well, I agree with you there. You want to won me over as to who is the most important character. Well, I think, yeah. So yeah.
I think there's some
totally
truth in both. I'm going to be. I think there's some. I think there's an argument to be made for both. All right. There you go. And I think your argument is just as valid as mine. And that's what makes us great friends and great comic book fans, is that we can understand that I have my view, you have your view, and sometimes we recognize the strength of each other's position. So there you go.
So the arcs. So there are definite arcs in this entire franchise. So you have Tony Stark. You have his beginning, middle, and end by the end of this movie. Same thing with Captain America. You have the beginning, middle, and end for that character too. Thor, to be continued, right? So we know that.
I couldn't care less about Thor. I really couldn't. I was like, I like the first Thor movie because it's like a breath of fresh air. But you know how I feel about fake funny. And they use Thor as the scapegoat of every single joke.
Well, it is like, it's kind of like they realized halfway through the franchise that Chris Hemsworth has a nice delivery line, right? Like,
yeah. Totally.
And so they were like, yeah. And then they were like, okay, let's go with that, and then Ragnarok was successful. Not my favorite movie in the franchise, but it had its merit and it had its moments, But like you said, fake funny. It kind of chalks up Thor's character by the end of this arc, right? Where you find out you pretty much, like, at the beginning, it's all about redemption and him becoming worthy and everything, and by the end, he's a caricature of himself.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
And you know what? When he goes off into space at the end of this with the Guardians, I'm like, oh, he totally fits in with the Guardians, which is in the cinematic universe, he fits in, but in the comic, it's just like, why would Thor ever be with them?
Yeah, exactly right. So fair enough, he did the whole as Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, oh, okay, whatevs. But no. So
yeah.
But that's cool. I think arc-wise, we already know about Black Widows. You could argue that her sacrifice is about getting the blood off her ledger, which was alluded to way back when. Hawkeye, again, funnily enough, a hit and miss character for me.
Well, Hawkeye is one of the only characters I think that gets that happy ending, right?
Yeah. Well, no. Steve Rogers gets his, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Just because we're sad about it, And Sam gets recognised for being a good man, and so I think there's a whole chunk of things. From my wife's point of view, she's so we talked about this the other day, like this morning. I said, can you believe so many people were crying in the movie? She goes, oh, well, there's some emotional bits. And I was like, oh, well, which are the emotional bits for you? And she goes, oh, well, obviously, I am Iron Man, and the click of the fingers. And then she totally surprised me. She said, it's when you hear Sam's voice over the radio, and then you see the first Doctor Strange circle appear, and they start pouring out of the onto the battlefield. That bit, she said, I welled up then. I was like, oh, okay. It was a good bit, a totally good bit. When Iron Man, when Tony hugged Peter Parker, and that, I think, if you're looking for the soul of the movie, I think that's it. You talk about arcs, and through this movie, getting Peter back is Tony's drive. So
because Peter's the future, not just of the Avengers. He's the future of Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
Well, yeah, Tony Stark doesn't know that. All he knows is the kid died.
Yeah, but I mean for the fan base.
Yeah. So I think that bit works really well.
So
and
I want
to, of course, can I say it now? Can I talk about the hammer? Can I talk about the hammer now?
Well, let me go back, because you mentioned a minute ago. No, you mentioned a minute ago about people crying in the theater, and I do have to talk about that, because that was a really emotional third act of the movie, and I'm not ashamed to say that I was one of those people that was. I really couldn't get really control of myself because those moments kept coming fast and furious after the initial, Cap versus Thanos, and then once that happened, and it dawned on me, because I thought about this a lot, because I don't usually cry at movies, but I've been an Avengers fan since 1984. When I picked up my first Avengers comic off the spinner rack at my local Curtis Compact Food stores, and paid 60 cents for Avengers number 246, which, had a special guest appearance by Ronald Reagan.
Wowza.
Yes. And I realized that that was the first day that I considered myself really a comic book collector, because I realized that it was issue number 246, and there were 245 other stories for me to go read. And I thought about that a lot, as a comic collector, a comic fan, and an Avengers fan. And when these movies came out, over 11 years ago, when I was a kid, I was fantasy casting an Avengers movie. I was, Tom Cruise was my Tony Stark, which really quickly changed to Robert Downey Jr. I had him cast as Iron Man years and years before the movie ever came out. And, Brad Pitt was my Thor, and it's, to me, seeing these movies come to life on film and being able to experience them with my children, to me, I didn't realize how emotional that I would get. And I didn't, I didn't really think that the previous three Avengers movies, not that it measured up, but it didn't make me feel like this movie did. And that moment, in I'll let you say it with the hammer.
Mjolnir
When
decided to recognize a certain someone for their being worthy, which was hinted at in Age of Ultron.
Yes.
I will gladly say that I was totally surprised. So you saw Thor getting Stormbreakered almost, and then the hammer twitches. You think, the hammer's going to fly to Thor, and Thor's going to give Thanos an uppercut to the heat, and that's it. It's going to continue on, and then all of a sudden, the hammer just flies to Captain America, and you think, at that stage, you've got Cap, battered, bloody, bruised, broken shield, and he's holding Thor's enchanted hammer, and you think, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
So that in that moment when
I've got a stupid smile on my face talking about it. That's there you
and
go.
it was the shot, right? It was the shot of Steve looking at the camera with the hammer behind him, crackling electricity, and I lost it at that point. That was the thank you from Marvel to me for being a fan. For all these years, and we all know that anybody that reads the comics knows that Cap's worthy, and that Cap's wielded Thor's hammer before.
Yeah.
But nobody in the theater knew that, and that was that when that the crowd erupted in so much applause when they saw that movie that I didn't even know if there was anything that was said as a line because you couldn't hear it over the roar of applause in the theater, and that
carry on.
That was when I started crying because I felt so much joy that I was experiencing this with a theater full of people that were enjoying this as much as I was at that moment. And then when they had that bit of a fight scene, and then where it looks like Thanos is beating them back again, and you hear Sam come over the radio with Cap. This is Sam, and then he says, "On your left."
Yeah.
And then the Doctor Strange portal opens, and Black Panther comes through, and that's when I realized, okay, this is the moment. And I knew it was coming before anybody because we hadn't seen it in 4 movies, and I had been waiting my entire life. And I didn't know I was waiting my entire life to hear that. But when everybody comes through the portal, and you have all the returned characters all standing behind Cap, and he just looks and he says, and it's the delivery too, where you don't expect it to be as quiet as it was or as meaningful, and he just looks and he says, "Avengers, assemble."
Yeah.
And that I think I cried for like 5 minutes after that because and you can tell I'm getting emotional about it now because it's, to me, that was, I used to run through the house when I was a kid, "Avengers, assemble." And that was a payoff. That was the payoff moment for me. And after that, you get that the reuniting of Tony and Peter, where Tony, and then of course that the kind of captured the flag moment with the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
And everybody, like all the returning characters, get their 2 seconds in the spotlight to shine with their moves during the fight scene. And then you've got
we're going to talk about the when Thanos starts to turn the tide on them.
Yeah, go ahead. You can take over because
you're getting a bit. So they're shooting up the ground, and then when you think, oh my god, what's going to happen next? Well, as soon as you see the guns point up, you think, Captain Marvel's on her way, and she absolutely turns the tide again. And I do have a problem with Captain Marvel, and I think Marvel might have a problem with her down the line in that she's just too damn powerful.
Yep.
I think. I love the character. People who've been listening to me waffle on about comics know how much I love Carol Danvers. I've got Miss Marvel from the 70s. I've got Miss Marvel through all the various series that she's in. And, I've got the Captain Marvel issue where Chewie's a flirking. So she's like super powerful. And then you get the moment. And I don't know how I feel about the moment where you get all the female characters lined up.
Yeah.
I guess you've got to do that. But my wife looked at me and said, "What's the point? Why is this?" And
I knew exactly what that point was, and I said it to my girlfriend while we were in the theater.
Yeah, it's to show that females are equally as strong as the males, and they've got a right to fight for the planet as much as the male superheroes have. I get it.
Well, Marvel's got comics have gotten raked over the coals for not having any strong women characters, and if you put that on, let's put that on DC. Let's say if they had that scene in like a Batman versus Superman, the only character on film would be Wonder Woman standing there, right? Yeah. So that was a slap in everybody's face, or a shout out to Marvel by Marvel saying, "Hey, we have more than one strong female character here." That was like, how many was there? 9 or 10, 11? Easily enough for a couple of Avengers movies there, like an all Avengers team.
Well, you say that, but only one of them's got a movie.
Well,
I'm
true.
up to DC, but DC. I'm not going to say that Catwoman or Harley Quinn are strong characters, so they are. But see, you've got me all DC'd up now. Damn you. So yeah,
it was a nice moment.
I liked it. I thought it was a nice nod to everybody who says that superheroes are kind of just a boys' toy thing, and I liked it. I thought it was a good nod. I loved seeing Pepper back in her armor. I thought that was canny. I will say that as I think Captain Marvel is too powerful, but then of course you get the moment with the glance, because they've had a conversation already, but you get the glance between Doctor Strange and you get with Tony where he holds up his one finger to say one
it's
chance.
Time. Yeah.
And that's Tony's heroic moment.
Yes.
Everything else that Tony does, other than this movie, is about him for a large part. This is Tony's heroic moment. And if you cast your mind back to the Avengers movie, the very first argument that Cap and Tony have is that Cap accuses him of, "You're not the guy that falls on the grenade. You're not the guy that falls on the barbed wire so a man can crawl over it." And Stark's like, "No, I'm the guy that just cuts the wire."
Yeah.
Always looking for the quick way out. And this is Tony not doing that.
So let's analyze that a little bit, because they also introduce so in the 5-year gap, you realize Tony and Tony and Pepper had a baby, Morgan, which is kind of funny because that's Tony's uncle, right?
Yeah, it's alluded to in Infinity War. Yeah,
right.
I had a dream that we had a baby and it was so real. And are you? And he's like, "No, I'm not."
So here's the question: If Tony hadn't had that journey, that 5-year journey post Infinity War, where he did not have a baby with Pepper and did not have that happiness or that found happiness, do you think he makes that sacrifice at the end of this movie?
Yes.
You think that, because I think that he made that decision to save his daughter. I don't think that I think primarily if the daughter was not in the picture, that he would probably still be primarily thinking about himself.
No, I think that's a huge part of it, because even when they're talking about changing the timeline and bringing people back, it's like, bring people back. That's it. Don't change anything else. So he's really adamant that that's all he wants to do.
Right.
A large part of his drive. What's the first thing he says to Steve when he gets back to Earth? One of the very first things he says is, "I lost the kid."
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I think at that stage, he's done everything he possibly can to right what he feels is his wrong, because it's his fault that Peter was on the spaceship in the first place. And he realizes this is the only way to stop Thanos. And click, there it goes. And
well,
I get what you're saying. I agree that the daughter element does have that, will have elements in that as well. But as you listen to the recording in the epilogue 1, as you call it, he thinks everyone's going to be all right. He thinks it's going to be, he's leaving her a voice message, but he thinks everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out, because that's what they did with the Avengers.
So, what were your biggest problems with the movie?
Back to the Future 2, halfway through it, especially the Avengers bit. I think I've covered them all, actually. Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I stand. I liked well, the thing that kind of knocked me a little bit, I guess, is that the talk about only having enough pin particles to do certain things, and yet when they go back in time and the nick some more, I know Cap picks up like 3 or 4 vials.
Yes.
But after that, there's a shed load of pin particle use going on. So I'm thinking, where'd they all come from? But hey ho, that's me being me.
Maybe there'll be a deleted scene where they just find more.
Yeah. Other good parts are that I really liked. Steve watching Peggy through a window.
Yes.
Both me and Mrs. H, when he ducked into the office and you saw the letters TER. TER on the window. Both me and Mrs. Hughes just went.
Yep. I did too.
It's like it's Peggy's office,
Yep.
And then you see it pan out to say Margaret, and you're like, and people go, "Who's Margaret?" And you're like, "You dickhead." Peggy's a shortening of that. I thought there was more good than bad bits. I'm not gonna lie. The time travel bit can make your head explode if you think about it. Because in old school rules, if Thanos dies in the future, who was it that clicked his fingers in the past?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stress about it. I'm going to enjoy it for what it is. At the very least, this movie is a swan song to say goodbye to all the characters that you've loved for the last 10 years or so. At the very best, this is a movie where heroes are heroes, despite gender, despite race, despite African versus American versus whatever. These are heroes doing heroic deeds at a time where they are needed. There you go.
Well, I don't know what I can say that I haven't said already. There were a couple of things that there was one part, the funeral, Tony's funeral at the end, where I feel like I think first of all, I think Benedict Cumberbatch was CGI'd in there because he didn't move or blink, and he didn't look like he was actually there. I don't know if you caught that.
Maybe that was his astral projection.
Well, that's kind of what I thought, but then I was like, why would he be wearing a suit for his astral projection? And then the other part was hey guys, let's all gather together according to franchise, and have that slow pan from, hey, this is your starring cast for Iron Man, this is your starring cast for Thor, this is Captain America, Black Panther, Spider. I was like, okay.
There are a couple of things that kind of are in that sort of pan shot. Aunt May's in there, so now Aunt May now knows that Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Great, cool.
Yeah, she found out at the end of Spider-Man.
Did she?
Yeah, that was how the movie ended. That was what the F moment when he was taking his mask off.
There you go. See, that's how much interest I paid in Homecoming. That's because I prefer the Andrew Garfield movies. Unpopular opinion.
Unpopular opinion.
That's fine. I'm all right with that. And then, of course, there's the kid from Iron Man 3 in the lineup. I had to Google. I was like,
yes,
who's the kid? Who is that guy?
So, and they stayed on him for a second because I was like, okay, who am I looking at?
I was like, is that Jones? Who is that?
Yeah. And then who was the eagle eye that spotted that it was the kid from Iron Man 3?
I don't know. It was someone on Google. I had to check it the morning after. I was like, who is it? The Tony Stark's funeral? And it's like, oh yeah, the kid that no one knows is such and such from. I was like, oh okay, yeah, it makes sense.
It doesn't make sense because if he wasn't there, no one would miss him. But he was there, so everybody was like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, makes you go back and watch Iron Man 3, I suppose. No, there's always, for a movie that's 3 hours long, there's always going to be things that tick you off. There are always things that you wish they could have done something better. They wish they could have kept your favorite character alive. For example, Black Widow.
Right.
Yeah. For all the pomp and bombacity that Captain Marvel created last month, you'd think she'd have more of a starring role in this.
I'm kind of glad she didn't. I mean, I like that she was like there at the beginning of the movie, and then you didn't see her again until the end, because the story needed to concentrate on other things.
Yeah. Every time I think of something, like it should have been Thor is stronger than the Hulk in my head. So he could have clicked his fingers. But then then if he clicked his fingers, then he'd be damaged, so he wouldn't have to have the Stormbreaker fight, which wouldn't have let the hammer fly to, and all that sort of stuff. So every time I think of something, I think it through to try and get out of it. And I don't do that with a lot of movies, because I think if I found a flaw, it's a flaw. And sometimes you can't think it through. But I will say, hand on heart, that Winter Soldier is still my favorite Marvel movie. But Endgame is up there, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Both, if you watch Infinity War and Endgame back to back, which I'll do when I buy the Blu-rays, then I think it'll be a more complete package.
So as far as I can say about, I think if you rewind this back about 15 minutes, you'll just, you'll get my thoughts on the entire movie. To me, it was a culmination of my 40 years of fandom for me, for the comic book, for the movies, for the characters. It was an ending for several of the characters that we won't see again, at least until they reboot the universe and recast everybody. But I don't see the way that the way they're moving. I don't see that as an option for the universe.
I hope you don't. I've got to be honest.
Yeah,
I can't
me
see.
too.
I cannot see anybody else playing Captain America than Chris Evans.
I
cannot see anybody playing Iron Man better than Robert Downey Jr. Despite the quality of certain movies, at least he's always been a decent performance.
Yes. No,
even if to some extent he's playing himself. Allegedly.
So to me, I mean, all I can say, really, to Marvel Studios, to Disney or whoever, thank you for being respectable to the fans and kind of bringing us something that I think is going to satisfy an overwhelming number of people. I don't, of course, you're going to have your naysayers and people that hated the movie, but I think overwhelmingly you're going to have people that are saying, hey, you know what? This is great. Maybe we had a couple of issues, but this is really, really something you guys have created here over the last decade.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's not something that we're going to see again.
No.
So,
no. And thank you to listening to me for the ending. I expect my paycheck anytime soon, please.
It's I think you should actually have some credits at the end. Should be like, written by the Russo brothers with Johnny Hughes. Or it would have to be professional, so it would be with John Hughes.
Johnny is my name.
Johnny or maybe just the Machine.
Yeah. Yeah, La Máquina.
La Máquina. So, hey, you know what? Because I saw that ending coming, with Cap and Peggy dancing in the living room, and I looked at my girlfriend and I said, "Oh my God, Johnny's right," and it was hilarious to me at the time. But kudos to you, man, because that's what you said. You were like, if there's any justice in this world, that's how this movie ends, right?
Yeah, that's what I said it. I said it loads of times.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So next time it's back to business. Bring on the comic book.
Oh, you know what? I had so much fun talking about this movie as opposed to this week's releases. So don't worry, guys. You didn't miss anything.
Harsh.
I'm just saying the Avengers Endgame trumps anything that is going on in Marvel Comics this week. So don't feel bad about missing talking about comics this week. We'll be back in force in 2 weeks. Probably, I don't know if I would have seen Endgame again a second time. I don't know if I can go put myself through it again.
I am tempted to, but not yet.
I see, because this is the thing, is I don't really want to look at it with a critical eye yet. You know,
I wouldn't. No, I think I want to try and pick up stuff that I've missed. But you can't recapture that emotion.
Right.
But hey.
All right. Well,
Cool.
Thanks for listening. This is has been the official Avengers Endgame kind of review podcast.
From No Price Podcast. Don't forget to check out UCPN because I'm sure there will be other people with things to say about the movie.
I bet there are.
Yeah, but we got there first, and
Yes.
we're right, they're wrong. Just saying.
We got there first. We got there best. All right. All right. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Adios.